Well, as Scott said, we got our teens and a handful of adults that are in Metepec, Mexico right now. Got confirmation yesterday of their arrival, and so be praying for them. And as a result, Pastor Dave isn't here today, which means that I apologize, but you're going to get awfully tired of me, okay? So, but you know what? Just know that it probably bothers me as much as it bothers you. So we're just going to do this together today. Don't forget about communion tonight. We're going to have a good time thanking Jesus for what he's done. I love doing that. I love that. It just resets my heart on the gospel, which I think is so incredibly important. So this morning, though, it's a skill that we master probably first, I think, when our life begins. I don't know if there's anything in life that we get better at more quickly than the skill of wanting something and declaring our desire for that thing. We think about when a baby comes out the womb, it's one of the first things that it does. It wah, wah, wah. Why? I'm hungry. Yeah, wah, wah, wah. I messed in my diaper. I want to be, what's that? I want to be comfortable. I'm not comfortable, right? Wah, wah, wah. I'm tired. Put me to sleep. Or wah, wah, wah. I don't know what's wrong, but I want something. And I don't know what it is, and it's going to be a mystery to both of us until I figure it out. So start trying stuff. Trial and error, right? But I know I want something. See, the wanter, you've heard me say this before, my wanter is not broken. I know how to do it. I know how to want things. And we end up at a position as human beings where we are driven by our desires. We are controlled by them so deeply. And here's the interesting thing about that. For as much as we grow up and become capable people, for as much as, at least here in the West, we have resources and can go buy, like, man, I'd like to go have this particular drink or food right now, and as an adult, I can go get it. It's great. As much as we have those things, we are largely unsatisfied and discontented people. We just are. And there's a reason for that. Let's dive into Ecclesiastes again today. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 10 is where we're going to start. We're going to go the end of Ecclesiastes 5 and the beginning of verse 10 is where we're going to be today largely. And just as a review, I think I got a slide up there for it there, Rich, under the sun, okay? This is kind of the theme of Ecclesiastes, right? The teacher, as identified in the book of Ecclesiastes, is, anybody remember? Solomon, right? This is Solomon, king of Israel, also the wealthiest person to ever walk the earth, right? At that time, virtually unlimited resources and wealth, and then also is simultaneously, which we don't often find in our world, the wealthiest person and also the wisest person in the world at this time. Wisest to ever live. In fact, I think probably wisest period ever, even to this day, other than Jesus Christ, of course. And so we have this teacher who is teaching us lessons through Ecclesiastes about life under the sun, because he is in a culture much like our own today, which is obsessed with finding meaning under the sun. I am going to do everything I can to find meaning down here horizontally in this life. I'm not going to factor any spiritual things into it at all anymore. I'm not doing that. I'm going to find meaning within myself and in my life under the sun. And the teacher says, I'll take up that bet. I will take that bet. And so he goes on a journey to look for meaning in a meaningless world, right? He does this, and he does it through pleasure, and he does it through wisdom, and he does it through all these things. And through this journey, he's teaching us important lessons about doing life under the sun, because even though if you and I both know, and we do know, right, that there is a God. Can we all agree on that? Okay, good. Whew. So glad that we are in concert on that. There is a God, and he is the God of the Bible, correct? Okay, good, right? Jesus Christ, right? Yes, okay. We all agree on that, even if we know that, even if we've been a Christian for a long time. Like, I prayed the prayer of salvation and dedication, of giving my life to Jesus Christ. I did that, who knows how long ago, and I've been following Jesus, even if that's the case. You and I still struggle with this because we live lives under the sun. That's where our lives are right now. This is the only life we know. I don't really know anything about eternity. I know very little about eternity compared to what I know about here. And I certainly don't really know what it's going to be like. So I'm living here. You and I are living under the sun. And it is very, very tempting, very easy for us to live like people who cut God out of their lives and try to find our own meaning under the sun. And the teacher's trying to say, it's not there. It's not there. In fact, your obsession with trying to find or make this life mean more than it was really designed to mean is actually lessening your ability to enjoy this life for what it is. It's actually doing that. When we try to squeeze more out of this life under the sun than what it was designed to give us, it actually keeps us from enjoying it for what it is. It really does. So, therefore, we are unsatisfied, discontented people. And the teacher has something to say about this. Ecclesiastes, not Ephesians, sorry. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 10 says this. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. Anybody agree? This is one of those in the Bible that you read and you're like, well, yeah, of course. Whoever loves money never has enough. But let's sit here in this verse for just a little bit. Whoever loves money never has enough. Do you see the crazy cycle that creates? Whoever loves money goes after what? Money. But will never have enough. So it's just they're destined to go on this meaningless cycle over and over and over again. And it teaches us something very important. Look at your notes. Number one, it is impossible to love wealth and be content at the same time. Okay, so how are we learning this, right? This is what the teacher's going to give us today. He's going to give us essentially, ready? The cheat code to contentment. This is what he's going to do. This is what he's trying to do. He is looking left and right and even explored in his own life with pleasure and all the other things. He has explored everything to his fullest extent, and he said, here's the truth. You cannot find contentment in this world by just going after all your desires. You can't do it, especially if one of those desires is more money. He says, you will really not find it then. And I think a lot of us know that to be true in the room. But it's impossible to love wealth and be content at the same time. You guys remember J.D. Rockefeller? Okay. J.D. Rockefeller was a rich man, right? In fact, he became, on September 29th, 1916, he became America's first billionaire. J.D. Rockefeller, on September 29th, 1916, became America's first billionaire. And somebody asked him once, how much is enough? They asked him this question. They said, how much is enough? You know what his response was? Just a little bit more. But here's what we're tempted to do, you and me. We're tempted to look at somebody like J.D. Rockefeller and go, well, when the Bible talks about people who have money, it's talking about them. No, it's not. I mean, it is, but it's not just talking about them. It's talking about you and me, too. So I went to a website. The address is givingwhatwecan.org, and it's actually a website that's designed to geared people toward generosity. But there's a portion of the website that says, "How rich am I?" So I clicked on it. And what you do is you enter your household income after taxes. You enter your household income into a little text box there, and then you hit go. And then it will tell you how rich you are in comparison to the rest of the planet. You want a perspective shift? Go do this little exercise, okay? I'll just give you one, okay? I'll give you one, all right? Right now, the U.S. poverty line, okay, according to the IRS, the U.S. poverty line is something like $29,000 and change per year. That's what's considered the poverty line, okay? So I'm just using that as a base, like here in the United States of America, a baseline for, like, if you're below that line, according to the IRS, you are considered in the poverty bracket, right? That's what it's saying, okay? And I'm just using it as a baseline. So I entered that number into this thing, okay? I entered that number. You know what it told me? That if I were making that much money per year, I would still be richer than 85% of the rest of humanity. My friends, when the Bible has warnings for people who have wealth, when the Bible talks about those in this world who are rich, it's us. It's talking about us. So, we're in danger of this, of loving wealth. And here's the problem. Whoever loves it never has enough. Okay, so what do we do with this, right? How do we know that we're loving it? Okay, look at number one there. Loving wealth means that we have our hope in it. That's what it means. To love wealth. It's not just biblically speaking, it's not just that I like it. Of course, I like to have money. Who doesn't like to have money, right? Anybody out there like, I'm good? Like, boss comes up to you, knocks on your door. Hey, Sam, I would like to offer you a raise, a big one, in gratitude for all the work that you've done here. And you look at him and go, hey, listen, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't need the money, okay? Why don't you go give it to Jerry down the hall? Said no one ever, right? Like, that just doesn't happen. Of course we want to have more money. Who doesn't want to have more money, okay? Of course, anybody would want to have more money. Anybody had offer? Oh yeah, sure, no problem, that'd be great. Why? Because then I can actually watch all of the Olympic Games because I can buy the streaming services that they're using to, it's like right now you only get whatever NBC is going to show you, but then you could get all of these other things. You could watch shooting, which I did not know was an Olympic event, by the way. I'm like, I could do that one, maybe not, but Arnie could do that one maybe. And it's like you could watch it for the low price of whatever. It's like, of course, I would love to have some more money. Then I can get that streaming service. We can watch this thing and have some more fun. Everybody likes that. Nobody says that, no, that's not, I don't want that. What we have to be in danger of, though, right? The more that we have, the more tempted we are to put our hope in it. Loving wealth means that we put our hope in it. And I'm telling you, we have this temptation. In 1 Timothy, the Apostle Paul is given instructions to Timothy because he's going to be a pastor in a place called Ephesus, which is like big city, okay? If you can imagine, like big city like Chicago. Think of that, actually more like a shoreline. Think of Houston. Like think of that, you're thinking of Ephesus, right? Port city, big city, lots of wealth, exchanging hands there. And he says this to Timothy, very specific instruction. In chapter 6, verse 17, he says, command those who are rich in this present world. Again, who is this? Us. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth. Those are our two big temptations for you and me, not to be arrogant. You say, well, I'm not arrogant, Pastor Steve. Okay. Sometimes what happens when our bank account gets bigger is our head gets bigger too. We look at it and go, I worked hard for that. I did that. Right? And there it is. There's the little temptation to become arrogant. And so he warns us about that, but then he says, don't put their hope in wealth. Don't do it, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. We're supposed to enjoy what God gives, not put our hope in what God gives. Okay, so look at this, number 2. God commands us not to put our hope in wealth because it is what we are tempted to do. It's what we're actually tempted to do. Why? It's what I said at the beginning. We want things. And one of those things that we want is money, because money gets me other stuff that I want. Right? I want. We're all very good at this. But the temptation is we put our hope in it because we think that we can, through our desires, fulfilling our desires, that we can create the kind of life that we want to have. I can just create my life. Comfortable. I've got the drinks and the food that I want in the fridge, in the kitchen. I've got the kind of house that I want. I've got the kind of boat that I want, the kind of truck that I want, the kind of car that I want. It's what we're tempted to do. How do we know that we're tempted to do this? Okay, if we have ever thought anything like this, then know that we're being tempted to put our hope in what we have. Something like this. If I just had a little more money, right? You think, well, if we're rich, then rich people would never have that thought. No, I just told you, J.D. Rockefeller has that thought. He had that thought all of his life. If I just had a little more money, then I would be able to get this thing. If I just had a little more money, then I could get nicer clothes for my kids. If I just had a little more money, then I could do this. What about this? If I just had this kind of house, if I just had the house with the front porch, if I just had the house with the backyard, if I just had the house with the deck, everybody wants the deck. If I just had a house, maybe you're like, if I just had a house that wasn't a money pit, right? I just feel like I'm repairing everything constantly. I just walk into the house and I'm plugging holes everywhere just to live in the house. Like if I just had this, then I would be happier. Ooh. Have you ever had that thought before? If I just had X, Y, or Z, I would be happier. I would be more content. Maybe you've even said this to God. I've said it to God before. Lord, if you could just make this a little easier, if you could just provide a little more, then I wouldn't be such a crank. Lord, I'm trying not to complain. I know you don't want me to complain. If I just had a little more, if I just had a little more room in the ledger, then I wouldn't complain so much. See, so we can help each other out here. There it is. There's the temptation. Because the truth of it is that we actually, through the gospel of Jesus Christ, have the ability to be happier, satisfied, more fulfilled, and it has nothing to do with the bank account or our possessions or how nice our clothes are or anything. It's got nothing to do with that, right? God commands us not to put our hope in wealth because it's what we're tempted to do, okay? Now, back to the teacher for a little bit, because what he's going to do is he's going to illustrate something for us that many of us who are of the wealthier people in the planet might not agree with immediately. And it's number 3 in your notes. Wealth is more of a problem than a blessing. You agree? Or not? How many of us out there, just like the odd guy who refused the raise, okay? How many of us out there are like, actually, I'm going to go to my boss's office. Hi, Mr. Smith. I really appreciate how you have been compensating me, but here's the truth. Wealth is more of a problem for me than it is a blessing. So if you could take my paycheck down, actually, you'd really be helping a brother out if you could do that. Said no one ever. Right? I realize in my check, you just give me too much. Like, why? Because wealth is more of a problem than it is a blessing. Let's read what the teacher has to say about it in verse 11. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. That's not a verse about weight gain, by the way. Although I guess it could be, technically. It's a verse about the fact that as you get richer, there are more people in your world who take the money. It's just true, isn't it? It's like you're single and you feel rich because you got your first full-time job as a single person, and you're like, this is awesome. And then you get married and you're like, where'd my money go? And then you have kids and you're like, I didn't even know we had the money for that, right? And then the IRS comes a-calling, you know? I'm sorry, I saw that you got a raise. I'm gonna need more of what you have. Right? It's all of that. And then you own a home, because it's like, now we have money, so we're going to buy a house. And you own a home, and then the house is like, yeah. So I'm waiting until after the inspection for all of the pipes to burst. Okay? I'm going to wait until after that for like all of that stuff. And then as goods increase, so do those who consume them. It's just the truth. As our wealth grows, here we go. This is number one there. As our wealth grows, so do the number of people who take it from us. Right? This is part of what he's making this case. He's saying, listen, like wealth, possessions, all the stuff that tend to be the object of our desires are actually not great places to put our hope. They're not. Why? Because as we get richer, as we get bigger, so the number of people, as our wealth gets bigger, so the number of people that take it from us. Right? What about this? Number two there. More money, more problems. I think I heard a rapper say that once. Truer words were never spoken. Right? Look at verse 12. The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much. But as for the rich, listen to this, their abundance permits them no sleep. This is what the teacher says. He says, for the wealthy, their wealth actually keeps them up at night. And so the more that they have, the more stress that comes along with it. This is a really interesting thing. I found this guy named Clay Cockrell, and he's a therapist to the uber wealthy, okay? A therapist to the uber wealthy, and this is what he says. It's so interesting to me. He says, I got into working with billionaires by accident. He said, I had one very wealthy client who was satisfied with my work and then passed my name around to their acquaintances. They are called the 1% for a reason. There are not very many of them, and none of them trust each other. He said, so over the years, I've developed a great deal of empathy for those who have far too much. Why? They're miserable. You ever thought about that? There's the teacher, thousands of years ago, identifying this problem. As for the rich, their abundance permits them no sleep. He says, no thanks, I don't want that much. Why? More money, more problems. Bad place for us to put our hope, and certainly impossible for us to find contentment if we keep going around that, well, if we just had a little more, if we just had this thing, if we just had that thing, that's not the way to get content in life. Look at number 3. The more we have, the worse it tends to be for us. Again, what does the teacher say? Verse 13. I have seen a grievous evil under the sun, he says. Wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners. He's saying this, like the more that is caught up in one person, right? You would think that they lack for nothing. All of their desires can be fulfilled because they have no limit on their resources. There is no one who says no to them, really. And he says, what does that do? It destroys them. It's to the harm of their owners. I saw this quote in one of the commentaries on this section, and I just thought it was so powerful. It says, here in America, one of the absurdities of wealth is how much money we spend just to undo the damage of wealth. Think about that for a minute. So one of the absurdities of wealth is just how much money we spend just to undo the damage of wealth. You think, how much money do we spend on medical procedures to undo the damage of excess? A lot. This is the cycle of it. And this is what we can get caught up in here in America. We can get caught up in this. And if we're not careful, we can believe the lie that somehow, if I just have enough of my desires fulfilled, if I just have enough resources to fulfill those desires, then I'll be a content person. Then I'll be a satisfied person. And the teacher is saying, as he's been saying so often throughout the series, it's not there. There's another reason why it's a bad place for us to put our hope and find our contentment. Look, number 4, we will lose it in the end. We will lose it in the end. Continue verse 13 again there. Wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, there's nothing left for them to inherit. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands, right? This is where this comes from, the saying, you can't take it with you in the end. Everything that I have, everything that's in my bank account is going to end up being somebody else's. We've already heard the teacher lament about this, where he's saying, I got to hand over everything that I have to my kids, and they could be idiots. He's concerned about this. He said they could be stupid with it. He said, like I got to do that, and then everything that I own, all the possessions that I have, even the most precious of possessions that I have, one day is going to turn to dust in a landfill. I said, I can't take any of it with me. So these are bad places for us to find our contentment or put our hope. So what does he offer us then? Here we go. Number 2 in your notes. 2A. True satisfaction in life does not come from fulfilled desires. I want us to understand this today. True satisfaction in life does not come from fulfilled desires. You think, man, I am not a satisfied person. If you think, I'm not that satisfied in life, I am longing, I am waiting, I am yearning, whatever that may be. Okay. But just understand that true satisfaction in your life does not come from having the thing that you think you are missing. This is what the teacher's teaching us today. It doesn't come from that. Maybe you're single and you wish that you weren't, and you're like, man, if I just had that companionship. Maybe I'm not a parent and I wish I were a parent. If I were just a mom, if I had that baby, then I would be more satisfied, more content, happier. Maybe if I just had that friend, or maybe if I was in that circle of friends, or maybe if I was in that tax bracket, or maybe if I had that, like whatever it is that is between here and wherever you think you need to be in order to be satisfied, I am telling you, the teacher is saying that is not the truth. True satisfaction is not found. It doesn't come from fulfilled desires. Look at number 1 there. Our desires will never be satisfied, even if we have what we think we want. Isn't that so interesting? Listen to what the teacher says, okay? Look at verse 18. This, he says, is what I have observed to be good. That it is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor under the sun. We've already established that. Live the life you have today. During the few days of life God has given him, for this is their lot. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions, pause, and the ability to enjoy them. Oh. Okay, put a pin in that. To accept their lot and be happy in their toil, this is a gift of God. They seldom reflect on the days of their life. They don't think too hard about life because God keeps them occupied with gladness of heart. Isn't that cool? I'd love to be one of those people. He's describing a content person. That's what he's describing. And then he goes on in chapter 6, I have seen another evil under the sun, and it weighs heavily on mankind, meaning it happens all the time. It says this, verse 2, God gives some people wealth, possessions, and honor. You think if there's a trifecta of things that I would like to have in life, wealth, possessions, and have people think well of me. Fame. Okay. That sounds pretty good. It says, God gives some people wealth, possessions, and honor so that they lack nothing their hearts desire. Listen to this. They lack nothing their hearts desire. How many of their desires have gone unfulfilled? 0. But God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them. Uh-oh. And strangers enjoy them instead. This is meaningless or grievous evil. You mean to tell me, Pastor Steve, that it's possible to be like Solomon, gain all of the wealth in the world, have all the possessions in the world, have all my desires fulfilled in the world, and still not enjoy any of it? Yes. I cite the uber billionaire people that we talked about before. What does this therapist say? He says, many of them, miserable. They're miserable. Their excess has ruined them. This is why, because true satisfaction in life does not come from fulfilled desires. It doesn't come from that, right? Our desires will never be satisfied even if we think we have what we want. And here's the problem, right? Here's why this happens. Look at number 2 there. Most of our desires tend to be under the sun. That's where most of our desires tend to be. You say, man, you pull somebody aside, somebody in the church, pull them aside and say, what do you want the most right now? And they might say relief from some kind of pain, or just a little more to cover the next bill. Or what do you want right now? I want my kids to stop doing stupid things and saying stupid things. Maybe that's it. Like whatever it is, it's probably, I'm going to spout off a desire that is under the sun, probably. I'm going to be talking about something I want in this life. And here's the lesson the teacher has for us. It said, man, if you get lost in trying to fulfill the desires that you have and thinking that that will lead you to a place of satisfaction and contentment, you are wrong, because desires are never actually fulfilled. He actually says this in a couple verses. In verse 7, he says, everyone's toil is for their mouth, yet their appetite is never satisfied. This is... They said, everybody works so hard. Why? To consume. I work to consume. I eat what I work for, and I buy, and I do all that stuff I consume. And he says, desires are never fulfilled. So if you think you're going down that road for satisfaction and contentment and happiness, that is a road in which you are going to come up empty. So what do we have then? Here's what we have. Number 3. We will only ever find true satisfaction in Jesus Christ. Okay, and right now you're thinking, well, that's a Sunday school answer if I've ever heard one. Okay? No, I'm going to give you a little more. Okay, look at number 1 there. We need to learn to enjoy Jesus. To enjoy him. Here's a question I have for you. You might love God. Somebody asks you, say, do you love God? Yes, I love God. And you might say, I revere God. I revere him. I respect him. Do I obey God? Yes, I try to obey God. I try to do these things. And yet, there's something missing. There's this joy that I'm after that I don't quite seem to capture very consistently. There's this satisfaction that other people talk about that seems to elude me. And if I may, I think the diagnosis is something like this. You might come to church and worship God and obey God as best as you can and study his word and all those things, but you don't really enjoy him, enjoy Jesus. You think the things that you enjoy in life are other things under the sun, but you don't really enjoy the person of Jesus Christ and who he is. Just enjoy being with him. Just enjoy spending time with him, wanting to be with him, wanting to read his words spoken into your life. And let me tell you, it's actually possible to do this, but it takes time, okay? So there's some space at the bottom of your notes. I want you to write 3 words if you got a pen or a pencil. Okay. Here's the 3 words. Study, adore, and love. Okay? Study, adore, and love. In Philippians chapter 4, the Apostle Paul talks about contentment, and he says this. He says, listen, I'm not saying all of these things because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances, okay? I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And everyone stops there and goes, what's the secret? He doesn't just say, oh, and the secret is, that would be nice, Paul. Oh, by the way, and the secret is, like, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He does this. He says, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And here's the thing, we tend to lean a bit on the strength part of that sentence, but I'm telling you, he's telling us how he's doing this, right? And it's not just about strength that he gets from God, it's about God himself. He says, I can do all this through him. Through him, who? The person of Jesus Christ. You're looking at somebody who studies Jesus, right? It's like, what's the pathway to do this? Study Jesus. Study him. Study him. Look at him for his characteristics and who he is. Like, read in the Bible or get yourself a theology book on Jesus. If you want a recommendation, I can give you some that are going to help you. You just get a study Bible. Get a study Bible even, and just look at some of those things and write down characteristics of Jesus Christ that blow you away. Right? And then as you do that, adore him. Adore those things about him. Tell him that you are amazed at his faithfulness. Tell him that you are blown away by his forgiving grace in our lives and his incredible faithfulness and love towards you every single day. Like, this is a practice of a person who's learning how to enjoy Jesus. And then love him. Love him. You say, how do I love Jesus? Actually, he tells us exactly how to do it. Keep his commands. That's what he says, right? But we need to study him and adore him if we are going to make the obedience about loving him. Otherwise, obedience will just be, I'm just doing my obligation toward Jesus. No, Jesus is a person, and he loves you, and he wants to meet with you, and he wants you to look on him, right? Turn your eyes upon Jesus, right? Look full in his wonderful face. And then the things of earth will go strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Why? Because I'm enjoying him. I'm enjoying who he is. Guess what? Tonight you're going to have a chance to do that. You come to communion tonight, you're going to have a chance to enjoy Jesus, to be overwhelmed and blown away by who he is and what he's done for you. And making a practice of this, you will find that this unfulfilled desire is not as important as it seemed the day before. It grows strangely dim as I look full in his wonderful face. And that is the path to contentment in this life. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all that you have done for us. Lord, I pray that you would help us to enjoy you, help us to look on you, to adore you, to love you, to study you in your word, and to thereby be satisfied. Lord, help us be satisfied in you. It is the only way that we can be. Lord, thank you so much that we can be through you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.